Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Shreyas. I'll be telling you a story today while demoing a piece of work that was tackled by our Blue Sky Week team to remove old code from our various code bases and reduce technical debt within our projects and teams. We hope you enjoy it. We are the Code Cleanup Crew. This story takes place on Thinker Island, a place where everything is made of code. The streets, the buildings, the stores, and everything else. Once upon a time on Thinker Island, a group of talented individuals were walking to their favorite park for an outdoor concert by Savio and his band Three from the Bay. They thought they were on the right track until suddenly the street split into two paths. The code had two execution paths. The thinkers were unsure which was the right way, but they decided that they'd continue down path A because it looked promising. They walked down this path for 30 minutes, and the park was nowhere to be seen. Unsure what to do, they decided to turn back around and try path B. Although this path did take them to the park, by the time they arrived, the band had finished playing, and they missed out on all the fun. This was the final straw. The thinkers decided they had had enough of these old code paths and trails that led nowhere, just confused everyone on the island, and they took it upon themselves to clean up the island. The thinkers got together and started investigating. They needed to identify areas of the island that were dead ends, or paths that were unused. The good thing is, they had members who lived in various parts of the island who each knew about areas that were uninhabited and isolated. They narrowed it down to the following neighborhoods. The north end of the island, where there was a lot of code from past experiments that was creating duplicate execution paths and confusing residents, making them go down wrong streets or end up in dead ends. East side, where there was a lot of unused or legacy security code, confusing the local police authority about when an actual crime was taking place or if it was just a false alarm. Central Station and downtown, where there were large dumping grounds and unclean areas, negatively affecting tourism and the appearance of the island. The thinkers knew if they were able to clean up all these areas, it would help the island function in a smoother manner across all departments. There was one problem, though. The local government of Thinker Island got word of the fact that many of the island's residents are planning on working on this cleanup project for an entire week, and some of the officials had some reservations. They were not fully convinced of the value of doing this. The island was still functioning fine, so why do this? The thinkers understood the concerns of the government officials because they were usually hyper-focused on building new things, but this was something that they were easily able to explain to the officials. There were a few major reasons why this work was so beneficial. Firstly, it was reducing the amount of technical debt we had piled up. Tech debt describes what results when development teams take actions to expedite the delivery of a piece of functionality or a project which later needs to be refactored. This happens often when we need to put out a piece of work quickly and in a timely manner. It's not always a bad thing. It has its own trade-offs, but if left to accumulate over time, can cost an organization a lot of money because it slows them down and makes it harder to execute and deliver high-quality work. Reducing the amount of code within our code base is one of the best ways to reduce tech debt. The less code we have, the less there is to maintain or understand. It's exactly like credit card debt. Next, we have the reduced cost of understanding. 40 to 60% of software maintenance efforts are devoted to analyzing and understanding existing code before determining where to make a change or correction in the software. Unused code is additional code that needs to be analyzed and maintained. If the code exists, programmers must spend time understanding it, which increases your maintenance efforts and hence costs. Removing code immediately solves this problem. Third, we have reduced response times. In line with the above, unused code also negatively impacts your response time when it comes to addressing production issues or implementing enhancements, since developers have more code to look through and confusing execution paths to understand. Less code equals less confusion, which means faster responses. Finally, we have reduced testing efforts. Regression testing scenarios are typically designed to cover all code, used or not. Unused code in your systems unnecessarily adds to the testing efforts and costs of every release or project. The thinkers explained this to the government officials, and it was clear to them that there were a lot of value add through this work. They approved the initiative, and the thinkers continued on their cleanup journey. They worked long and hard for a week, and by the end of the week, they had some pretty marvelous results. As you can see on the screen here, throughout the week, or by the end of the week, the thinkers had removed a working total of over 226,000 lines of code throughout various repositories. And even more impressive is that they had not only removed that code, but they had merged master and deploy to production over 202,000 lines of code removed. And there's a linked Google Doc with the exact results and details about which areas the code was actually removed in. But this is absolutely amazing. It's going to help all of us move way faster once this week is done. So in this way, the thinkers cleaned up their island and were able to live in a much cleaner and organized environment. They never missed another concert and lived happily ever after. I'd like to thank all the thinkers who worked on this project to make it a grand success. I'd also like to thank our BSW committee and leadership teams who encouraged and supported code cleanup initiatives. Next, I'd like to thank Kimia for coming up with the initial thought of creating a team for this initiative. And finally, thank you all, wonderful people, for listening to our story today. We appreciate it. We are the Code Cleanup crew, and thank you once again.